So my dear distinguished guests, it is a huge honor to be here with all of you and tell you about the incredible opportunities that sustainability presents to real estate in the kingdom. And particularly, we're very honored to be the net zero partner for GBB. We've already started calculating the emissions of this conference and are giving them the optionality to offset it with high quality carbon credits. So today I would like to talk to you about two topics. First of all, give you a quick introduction to the voluntary carbon market, and then talking about how we can use real estate in the kingdom to be a real force for sustainability. So we all know that climate change is a huge problem, particularly in the Middle East. The Arabian Peninsula has already been experiencing about 3 times the global average warming. On this trajectory, we will be reaching dangerous levels of warming in particular parts of Saudi Arabia. For example, Neom, within our lifetimes, will hit critical levels of wet bulb temperatures of 35 degrees. But there's a solution, which is carbon credits. Carbon credits are what to energy electrification is. They are a necessary infrastructure for deep decarbonization. Because after everything has been decarbonized in terms of energy supply and processes, there still are residual emissions which cannot be covered with continued decreases in emissions. These have to be covered with offsets where carbon emissions are negative to balance out the positive emissions that remain in buildings. Now, if you're familiar with carbon credits, they are basically a piece of paper that say that a ton of carbon was sequestered somewhere under certain circumstances. They generally fall into 3 different types. There are emissions reductions, which result from reducing the emissions in a given process through energy or emission-saving technologies. Then there are nature-based removals. These are trees, most classically, but also mangroves, for example, specifically relevant here in the kingdom. And finally, durable removals. The classic example is direct air capture, by which a process, a huge machine, actually manages to put carbon into a bottle. So there's no debating whether that carbon has been sequestered or not. And these carbon credits play an important role in helping organizations decarbonize completely. So the first step that needs to be done is to decarbonize the operations of the building directly, because that is really where you're avoiding the emissions going into the air for the first time. As part of that, emissions reduction credits can be purchased to help that effort, but over the longer term, actual removals need to be part of the strategy. And the voluntary carbon market is putting together a portfolio, which it sells to many clients already, that perfectly encapsulates this balance of credits that should be purchased. And being part of a decarbonization journey that includes carbon credits really is just acting in accordance with what some of the very biggest brands in the world are already doing. All of these and many other global brands are purchasing carbon credits as part of their decarbonization journey. So, onto the voluntary carbon market. We were set up in 2021 by His Royal Highness and the Public Investment Fund with a mandate to decarbonize the emissions of the kingdom, starting with the portfolio companies of the Public Investment Fund, but then going on to many other companies. We've received support from many of the most important leaders in the kingdom. Our other partner is also Saudi Tadawul Group, and we have now become one of the few licensed exchanges. Really quite an innovative action to take on the part of the kingdom, because there are no other countries at this point that have established carbon markets as one of the main exchanges alongside stock markets for businesses. And since 2021, we've been going from success to success. We are now the third largest carbon exchange in the world already, thanks to our many partners, many of which might be sitting in this room as well. We have led some of the very biggest auctions for carbon credits in the world, and to date have been decarbonizing about 10,000 tons of CO2 per day on average since we started. We have been working with some of the very biggest companies in the kingdom and have exclusive relationships with companies accounting for 2/3 of the emissions of Saudi Arabia. And why does this matter so much? Well, because why are Swiss watches so good and German cars so good? I think it is because there is a local population that really cares about these products and is passionate about it. And in the same way, Saudi Arabia has shown that they are passionate about carbon markets and sustainability. And that is why, in a very short period, we have been able to build one of the most powerful infrastructure pieces for sustainability in the world. Now, what you're actually interested in, how we can take advantage of the real estate sector to be a real force for sustainability and be quite profitable on the way. So first of all, there are 4 reasons why green investment is really booming in the kingdom. First of all, out of necessity. It has now become a competitive necessity to be green. This is what international clients and guests have started expecting. Then requirements. As the screws are being tightened all around the world to become more sustainable, the real estate sector is no exception. And it is starting to become a requirement to decarbonize your emissions to an extent. Then it is also an opportunity. The companies that are taking this opportunity right now will be reaping the benefits in the future. And finally, it's also an expectation from the people that run this country. This is part of Vision 2030 to decarbonize entirely. And now carbon credits play an important role in decarbonizing every single part of real estate. So if we look at the way that the source of carbon emissions across the real estate sector, the vast majority are in the construction of real estate, followed with operational emissions that are ongoing throughout the lifetime of the project, and finally some demolition. But through all of those, you really need to soak up those residual emissions through carbon credits. And there are some great examples of real estate already doing this, including the SABIC HQ, or a real estate complex at 100 Liverpool Street in London, which was actually the first building to be net zero on embodied, which is construction emissions. A great example for the kingdom and really where we see buildings in the future going all around the world. And with carbon credits, the way that it needs to be thought of is really as a need after you have done some of the major work. So if you look at the emissions reductions that can be achieved through regular processes and energy saving measures, a lot of them actually save money. So it is actually a purely financial decision to do more sustainability in your real estate project. Why? Because it saves energy. It makes for a better experience, which makes it more attractive. It gives you better financing terms. All these are reasons to go for sustainability at the beginning. These are advisory services, sustainability advisory services, which we also help companies do to show them how they can use carbon credits as part of an encompassing, exhaustive approach to becoming more sustainable and thus more successful in all ways. Then after that, we see in yellow that there are some emissions which do cost some money. But if you even it out on the money that you saved with the first reductions, it actually turns out to be negligible. And then finally, at the end of the yellow and then the red territory, that is where we get to the emissions that it makes more sense to use carbon credits for. Because these are the emissions that is actually cheaper to decarbonize right now with high quality carbon credits. And once the technology exists to decarbonize it, through direct emissions reductions, that is when it makes sense to jump onto that other side. But until then, carbon credits really are the answer. And we are happy to partner with Sinai, one of the foremost decarbonization platforms in the world, We also offer advisory services, and of course our main business is selling high quality carbon offsets, many of which are also sourced from Saudi Arabia. So thank you very much for your attention, and we hope you enjoy this net zero partnered conference by GBB.